Welcome to Cosmic Comics. The Overmind was first introduced in a 4-part story arc in the pages of Fantastic Four, Volume 1, issues number 113 through 116, published in 1971. Instead of focusing on the way the storyline is laid out within the comics, I'm going to approach the story chronologically. From beyond the stars shall come the Overmind, and he shall crush the universe. We're given the Overmind's origin story in Fantastic Four, Volume 1, issue number 115. In it, the Watcher breaks his oath of non-interference by telling the Fantastic Four the Overmind's origin story in hopes that the information might give mankind a chance against this fearsome foe. Billions of years ago, in the early days of the 616 universe, in a galaxy which no longer exists, we find the planet Eung. A world of primitive savagery ruled by an ancient race of Eternals. If you've seen my Eternals video, you might recall that the Celestials came down to Earth and divided a species of apes into 3 lineages: the Eternals, the Humans, and the Deviants. This is a pattern that the Celestials have repeated throughout the known universe. On the planet Eung, the Eternals rose to power, eliminating their planet's equivalent of the Deviants and Hominids, for these Eternals were conquerors, and soon they took their conquest to the stars. Lives without end for this warrior culture led to endless war. The Eternals became efficient killing machines that grew merciless and cruel after eons of war. They enslaved those they conquered, and as they left, they destroyed the planets that they left behind. They knew nothing but more endless victories. Over time, it became hard to find worlds that presented enough of a challenge to be considered conquest. Eventually, conquest wasn't enough to keep the Eternals satisfied, so they also incorporated arena battles called the Games that pitted the Eternals against any challenger, man, animal, whatever. This would culminate with various challengers facing off against a single Eternal champion, or at least that's how it took place in the one pictured here. And, in this case, they're fighting against the mighty Grom, winner of 1,000 combats and conqueror of 100 worlds. I'm not certain if Grom was a contestant throughout the entirety of the games, or if he was brought in only for this final match. Either way, as Grom walks through the arena, men fall off him to their deaths. He sheds and shreds bodies until no challengers remain. Grom is named Champion of Champions. Via his might upon the battlefield and prowess within the arena, Grom became the Eternals' greatest and most revered warrior. Elsewhere in the universe existed a planet named Gigantus, and the Watcher claims that this single planet dwarfed entire galaxies. Yes, one planet, larger than galaxies, and whose size is completely unfathomable, I would say. And even more amazingly, the planet is seemingly united under one world government, consisting of a single dominant species. This species, which has dedicated its lives to the cause of peace, have watched the Eternals with fear for some time. Then, the day comes in which the Eternals destroy the closest planet to Gigantus. And they know. I mean, come on. They have to know. But a planet that size, they can't be ignored. The Eternals, knowing nothing to defeat, forged ahead. The population of Gigantus fought back with the arms they had at hand, and they knew all they had to do was wait. Then it begins to sink in. The sheer size of the planet and the scope of the war ahead becomes too daunting. This conversation right here is written so well as it sums up everything concisely. Our planet would be less than a mountain here. Our population but a village. Not even a city, but a village. Ouch! And thus, for the first time ever, the Eternals decide to turn and flee. But the Eternals couldn't just leave. And as they left, they dropped their planet-destroying reaction bombs, which buried themselves deep within the planet's surface. These bombs were designed to set off a series of growing chain reaction explosions, thus leading to the inevitable death of the planet. Resentful for being roused from their peace-loving way of life and angry about losing their home, the citizens of Gigantus assembled a redonkulously huge number of ships into a grand armada, which then they sent forth to destroy the Eternals. Behind them, the largest planet of the cosmos has ever seen or will ever see, died. The rubble from Gigantus spread throughout the cosmos, and interestingly enough, within the Marvel 616 universe, part of this exploded planet eventually forms into a pale blue dot called Earth. As the Armada closes in on the Eternals' home planet, the Eternals are shocked that someone could actually have the audacity to attack them. In fact, the leader of the Eternals seems on the verge of just not accepting it as true until one of his advisors is kind enough to point out that the number of ships visible makes it beyond believable, outright undeniable. I love the fact that the sheer size of Gigantus is still being played up as one of the counselors points out that this stupidly large armada is made up of the tiny fraction of their population that survived. And the Eternals leader hangs on in blind faith, completely secure in the fact that everything's going to be alright. Besides, they've got defenses. And those defenses have failed by the very next panel. Gigantus is serving up a steamy, hot plate of revenge, and they get their vengeance by dropping reaction bombs upon the Eternals' homeworld. As the city crumbles, the Elder calls for the Scientist Royale to complete the final project, which appears to be Grom standing under a glass container. On the next page, we learn that Grom is getting the brain power of all the billions of surviving Eternals harnessed and transformed into his brain and synthesizing everything into one singular overmind. Notice that for some reason the Elder and his advisor don't seem to have their brains transferred. Just saying. So before Grom can become active, he needs an incubation period of eons. So they put our boy into a pod and transfer him over to the interstellar beamer and blast Grom, now the Overmind, into space. And thus he drifted through space, incubating. Over time, he eventually gets this weird mold thing that forms around his casing. The Watcher then teases us by telling us he could tell us more, but he doesn't. This doesn't make much sense, as the Fantastic Four are attempting to learn whatever they can about the Overmind in hopes that something that they learn will allow them to stop him from taking over Earth and then eventually crushing the universe. I thought the entire point of his interference was to divulge as much information as possible, but he's the Watcher, and thus he probably already knows he said just enough to give the Fantastics what they need to topple this bearded bad boy. The Overmind's official first appearance is on the cover of Fantastic Four, issue number 113. On the very last page of this issue, we see the Fantastic Four being taken into police custody for the damage they've done to New York due to a variety of superhero-related brawls. And on the same page, we learn that the mayor of New York has been pushing for these arrests. Or has he? Because we learn that the Overmind is controlling the mayor's mind, and that his reach for power doesn't stop there. Next, he wants to control the president, followed by the ruler of every single country on Earth. He wants it all, and Earth is his first stop in fulfilling the prophecy handed down to him by his forefathers. From beyond the stars shall come the Overmind, and he shall crush the universe. Next episode, I'll take a look at Overmind's first attempt to, quote, crush the universe. And yeah, this all eventually leads somewhere pretty weird, but it's going to take a few episodes. Thanks for joining me for this one. I always appreciate it when people hit those buttons below. I'm out.